I just want one good episode. That's all I'm asking for this week. It's not that hard to give it to me. Andrew, I don't know what I'm doing with myself anymore. Why are we here?
It it's like we have so much wrestling to choose from, but none of it's been appetizing lately.
This week has been rough across the board. And that's saying a lot because normally there's usually one or two promotions be like, hey, this is probably. No, this week has been bad. Raw was overflated with the Judgment Day. NXT was over bloated with things that didn't need to be there to build up to Battleground. Dynamite was a mess, and Chris Jericho had 6 whole segments in one episode of his learning tree gimmick. And I slowly saw the bounty hunter Brian Keith's soul just leave his body as the evening went on, having to be stuck with this. And we are here to talk about Ring of Honor, which is normally supposed to be really, really good. But Ring of Honor, you're making it really hard for me to tell people to watch it. They're like, should I watch Ring of Honor? I'm like, I'll get back to you on that one because it's, again, we find ourselves, spoiler alert, in the dead zone after Supercard, which was all the way back in April, mind you, and we're in June, and we're still in this wasteland. It is ridiculous. It is crazy. I don't know what's going on, but welcome officially to the Bi-Conic Review of Honor, otherwise known as the Bro around here. As you can see, our team of 4 has been reduced to a duo tonight. The California crew is about to wreak havoc all over the ROH. We kicked out the East Coast folk because why not? But in all seriousness, Jesse and JBO have other matters to attend to, but they will be back, hopefully, next week. Well, they will be, and then Andrew's leaving me with them by myself. How dare you? It's fine. No, but it's all good. But I am joined with me, as always, my other California host here on ROH, the Bro. Andrew, I want to be excited because I like doing these reviews with you. But it hurts every time this is a bad episode because I want to talk good things about ROH.
Yeah, they didn't give us a lot to talk about in that regard this episode.
No, and I'm really scared because next week I'm going to be so biased because if I'm correct in the airing schedule, my opinion's not going to matter because I'm going to be biased as all hell because next week I think is the tapings from Palm Springs, which I was at live. So my opinion is not going to be necessarily fantastic. And I'm going to do this now instead at the end. The Bro will be having a special guest next week on our review. It's going to be super exciting. We are going to be bringing on, you have all heard of her in some capacity across the reviews because she's always getting brought up. But Mama Luguilla will making her first ever Bi-Conic BC WrestlePod appearance next week on the Bro. We get the exclusive. This is going to be great. I hope. I'm delaying the inevitable because I really don't want to do this, but we have to. We have to. So let's just rip the Band-Aid off. We open up Ring of Honor this week in our first of many, many Squatch matches, where we have one of our personal faves here, Queen Aminata, who we here at the BC WrestlePod now have a new kinship to after being able to have a conversation with her a couple of weeks back. Super sweet. Love her. She's great. But she's in a Squatch match as she takes on Mazzeratti. Not the first time we've seen Mazzeratti here in the ROH grounds. I mean, this is exactly what it was. It was a Squatch match. Though I never get tired of watching Aminata's air raid crash. That is one of my favorite things to watch. But yeah, it was a Squatch match to be a Squatch match.
Yeah, I mean, Aminata looked even more aggressive. I'm glad to have her back, but yeah, it was a Squatch match, and I was less irritated by this being a Squatch match at the beginning of the night than I was by the end of the night because what I thought was just going to be one and done became a pattern for the evening.
Yeah, I'm just warning everyone now. As this episode gets on, I'm going to be progressively getting more annoyed. But we will get there. Again, I like Queen, but I'm tired. And, at first I was like, okay, this is a Squatch match. She's back. This one didn't irritate me as much, like you said, Andrew. But we're going to get into later in the evening, which irritated me more and more. And I should have known that things were going to be amiss this episode because we got this backstage segment next with Dalton Castle. I was mad. I was just like, no, depressed Dalton Castle has left the building. And I was like, oh, wait, he's seeking therapy. Okay, I can't knock that. Never knock on someone's mental health. I was like, okay, he's got this television championship match tonight. I think this is going to be fire. It's super exciting. Kyle Fletcher versus Dalton Castle. Probably going to end up being my favorite match of the whole entire night. Spoiler alert, by default it ended up being, but I have some questions when we get there. But I should have known something was amiss because Johnny and Taya Valkyrie, Mr. and Mrs. TV, make an interruption in this backstage segment. And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, oh God, please no, please don't give me the he who shall not be named booking where we continue to have them feud over and over and over and over again. But it seems that Dalton is not going to go down that road. And so I was like, okay, we're good. And then I was like, all right, I like this. But the whole point of this promo is Dalton's ready for this television championship match happening later in the evening. Johnny comes in accusing Dalton of stealing his glasses. Taya is there to hype Johnny up and also yell at Dalton. Dalton is a changed man, and he's not going to stoop to that level. He didn't steal the glasses, but he hopes Johnny finds them. And then they both do a very innuendous thing of just like, we got to do the pizzazz. And then it's like, how this big? And then they're like, this big. I was like, I see what you're doing. Haha. But yeah, we hopefully we dodged a bullet. But if Dalton and Johnny keep crossing paths, then I'm just going to have a lot of feelings down the road.
I'm not opposed to them doing promos together because they can be super funny, especially when you put Lexi with them. The fact that we didn't see them around each other during their matches does give me some hope. Like, I'm fine with them running into each other backstage because it gives that idea of, like, they're backstage at the show. Of course, they're going to see each other, and they're two of the most, like, over the top, characters. So they're going to keep crossing each other's paths like that. But I don't want to see them get involved in each other's match. I was a little worried that, like, seeing this, like, is Johnny TV going to show up in some way or another and interfere in the Dalton Castle match later? We didn't see any of that, so fingers crossed we're just getting it for entertainment, and we're going to carry on with other stories, though this evening did not give me hope for them actually carrying on with many stories.
Well, I mean, Andrew, we have a couple of problems with Ring of Honor, and I don't think we're going to solve them in one night. And in fact, we end up having one more problem as the problem, Marina Shafir, takes on local talent. I'm trying to remember if it's Amira or Amira. I want to say Amira.
I think it was Amira, I think is what they said.
Yeah, I hope I said that right. I apologize. And the crowd was behind this one. I was like, all right, local talent girl. Marina's about to whoop her butt, and whoop her butt she exactly did. Again, normally I hate squash matches, but I'm just like, okay, we're building up Marina. She is an MMA fighter, so mixed with wrestling, so this is going to be her style. I was okay with this one because this is continuing to get Marina Shafir in front of anybody who's not familiar with her work from another company, as well as if they're not familiar with the fact that, she's also married to, I love them to death, but they're both cardboard on the mic. She is married to Roderick Strong, both whose in-ring is great. Taki not so much, but Marina Shafir just whooped Amira's butt the whole match. I'm just like, yep, honestly, that's kind of how I would book Marina at this point.
Yeah, I mean, again, I didn't have as much problem with this. My hope is that they could do some really cool stuff with Marina Shafir, especially the way they've been presenting her. I just hope that they do. It does make sense, her first match back, that she, basically squashes her opponent. I'm not opposed to that, but my concern is, we saw it with Nyla coming in. We've seen it with some other people where they're just like, that's what they give us, is just them squashing local talent. And I'm just worried that they're going to keep doing that because at a certain point, it just doesn't do anything for me. Like, okay, cool. The person that's your regular, talent, of course, is going to beat the local talent. So it's not really making me exciting that they're this like world beater or anything like that. At some point, they have to beat people who give them a challenge, who mean something in the rankings for them to actually move up. It was a good match to get her started back on her road. So we'll see what they do with her from here.
Right. We got a problem. Her name is Marina Shafir. And at the moment, I don't know if we're going to be able to solve it. But fingers crossed that the booking will solve the problem of having consistent stories in ROH. Yes, that was a dig at the company because I'm mad. But something I wasn't mad at, though I was puzzled by bits and pieces of it, we have our ROH World Television Championship match at Dalton Castle. Is the challenger in this, taking on our champion Kyle Fletcher, who is the only male champion to somewhat consistently beyond Ring of Honor, but that's going to be a different conversation later in this video. But Kyle Fletcher is defending his title against Dalton Castle. I think once the match was said and done and I had time to reflect on it, I liked this match. Though at least for me, and maybe Andrew will agree or disagree with me, I feel that the first, I want to say maybe third of this match was a lot of start and stop
Yeah.
of moments. I was like, they're probably filling each other out, but this is, I was worried. I was like, they're not clicky. Oh no, is this? And then once we got to the last 2/3 of the match, I was like, okay, they finally figured it out. We got this. But it was a really slow start for this one, for sure.
Well, yeah, they're two very different styles of wrestling, and they're different styles than both of them usually wrestle opposed to. So it kind of made sense. I had some big issues with this match from just when I found out it was getting booked. Was like, well, first of all, when I saw where it was announced, like, why was this not our main event? It's literally for a Ring of Honor title. It's for the television title. It's Kyle Fletcher and Dalton Castle, someone who's been there not only for years, but has consistently been present in Ring of Honor television for the last, while that they've been back as a company under AEW. There was basically no build to this feud between the two of them. And why is it happening now? Like, why are we just getting this out of the way when we could build this for something and, again, tell stories? I thought the match was actually really good, really fun. I thought both of them got to shine in their style, but it reinforced my previous questions. Like, why were we not ending the show with this? Why are we not doing more with this between these two? The fact that Fletcher beat him clean, where does Dalton Castle go now? We already saw him struggle with the not being able to win the title, having to overcome that, having to work his way back up with the whole Johnny TV thing and everything. So now it feels like we're back to square one with that. And who's going to be the next actual challenger for Kyle Fletcher? I know we get that later, and that irritates me even more. But I'm at the point now where I'm like, when Kyle Fletcher got the title and you were bringing him in to wrestle for this stuff, they should have immediately stopped the Dalton Castle trying to go after the television title. When they were having issues with certain things, they should have put Dalton Castle in the world title picture and had him win the title. He's already on TV all the time. He's going to show up to represent that title. He's a huge name in Ring of Honor and historically in Ring of Honor. He represents the company well. He's a hard worker. He's probably the most entertaining backstage person that they have. And he's a fan favorite. He should be the Ring of Honor World Champion, and you could put him there, and we could actually see it, and then you could balance it out so then everything is not riding on Athena and now Billy, and occasionally on Kyle Fletcher, who, to his credit, since he had visa issues, he's been really good at showing up on Ring of Honor and actually, defending his title or at least doing proving ground matches, what I'm not a huge fan of. And then the Kingdom, who shows up every 2 or 3 weeks and does a proving ground match, which again proves nothing. So this match, while it was good, it just reiterated many of the issues that I have with Ring of Honor and how AEW is handling Ring of Honor.
Yeah, and we dived a little bit into this as a side tangent when we were reviewing Dynamite. Honestly, just have ROH be its separate thing. You can keep it within the multiverse, but keep it separate. And because you keep throwing AEW, you have AEW folks really as most of your champions. The only true ROH champions in my eyes right now is, as you mentioned, it would be Kyle Fletcher to a certain extent, but honestly, Billy and Athena are the faces of ROH champions, which is cool because both of them are women's champion. But you are, I don't want to say reliance not the two word, but Athena and Billy have to carry for both divisions and for the other champs that aren't there. You have Kyle Fletcher, who's doing a darn good job, or trying to at least, and I don't blame him. They just don't utilize him properly either with the booking. Wheeler kind of gets a pass because he was in concussion protocol for the whole entire time. And now that he's back, hopefully he will come around. But we're going to talk about that because watching it, I also brought it up during Dynamite. I'm like, he gets a little bit of a pass with concussion protocol, but the one thing that made me very angry, really quickly, spoiler alert, Kyle Fletcher wins. I don't know if we said that, but the thing that made me mad was the fact that the way we had our ROH world champion appear on Dynamite in a qualifying match to win a AEW championship. And that whole presentation upset me because unless you read the placard, it wasn't even there. But I'm going to let Andrew lead into our next segment because we're going to put a pause on the actual episode because me and Andrew feel very, very slighted and spicy today. So, Andrew, what was after we had our Ring of Honor World Television Championships? Why don't you tell the folks at home what played right after this?
Well, we did get an appearance finally. I think it's been like 6 months or something since we've seen the Ring of Honor Pure Champion, and we finally got to see an appearance of them in a commercial for AEW action figures for the Blackpool Combat Club. And included in there was Wheeler Yuta, who also showed up on AEW Dynamite to wrestle with Blackpool Combat Club. Didn't announce him as the champion. To be fair, they didn't announce John Moxley's championship either. But that's not a title that's part of your company. And the fact that they don't announce these things, like the only time we've seen Wheeler Yuta show up on TV, hell, you could have given us a promo. He was on Dynamite. He could have cut a backstage promo for Ring of Honor and just show that during the show. There were plenty of things to do there, and this is the closest we got to see him show up on Ring of Honor TV. We haven't seen Mark Briscoe since I think it was like the Ring of Honor episode after he won the title, and that was in a promo. I don't understand, like, what's the point? I heard someone compare this to, like, with him competing to win the TNA title, it was like an NXT champion, like the NXT World Champion, going up to one of the main promotions to compete for one of their mid-card titles. So it was like, oh, look, you're like, it's more exposure or whatever. And I would be okay with that if, like that other company, Ring of Honor, outside of those rare appearances, actually treated their championships and their champions with the respect that it should be treated and use them on the show to tell actual stories for those titles and for the show as a show, instead of having it be the leftover edited out pieces of AEW shows and use the titles as just another way to have more titles show up on AEW shows. Like, it's now at the point where it's like they show up with a Ring of Honor title and it's like, okay, cool, you have a championship, but no one cares about it because you don't do anything in the company that title is from. Like, it becomes pointless, and that's the most frustrating thing, especially because, like I said, with people like Dalton Castle, most of the tag teams in Ring of Honor, there are so many people who show up regularly on Ring of Honor and put in a lot of good work and would make great champions, and you could continue to use them on Ring of Honor as those champions. And instead, what they do is they put titles on AEW wrestlers, and then when they have Ring of Honor wrestlers show up in AEW, they treat them like cannon fodder. So they need to Ring of Honor needs to be its own show. Yeah, it can cross over just like New Japan does, just like AAA does, just like all of these other companies cross over with AEW, but Ring of Honor needs to be its own entity, and it needs to be treated like that, because otherwise what you're going to keep getting is the scraps and leftovers of the energy of the fourth show that people who are barely getting through the first three shows that they have are willing to give you.
You pretty much said everything else. The only thing I'll add in addition to this, and I said this all through my Dynamite review, so I'm only giving the Spark Notes version of it. It really frustrated me with Mark Briscoe being our world champion for ROH. But again, announcers don't announce he is the ROH world champion. He's holding this title. And for me, I get frustrated because, and I'm going to say this again like I did last night, I don't like when my intelligence as a wrestling fan gets insulted. And I feel that when companies waste my time by getting me excited, because I was really excited when Mark Briscoe won the title because of, the Briscoe name being associated with ROH, how much weight that carries in the wrestling world in general, but specifically for ROH. The Briscoes were ROH. They were a big talking point of the original ROH, along with some of the greats like Kevin Steen, El Generico, like all these folks. Like, Matt Taven, even, in the original ROH, Dalton Castle, all these people. And then, Maria Kanellis, when she came in during the original ROH back in 2018, ROH didn't really have a women's division, and she built that division from scratch. We had Roxy become our inaugural ROH Women's Champion, now known as Roxanne Perez in NXT. So they were onto something, and then, like everything else, pandemic kind of hurt them a little bit, which then forced them to shut down. People were still getting paid, which I admire ROH for still doing. And then I got excited when Tony Khan said he would buy ROH and revitalize it because of how much ROH means to a lot of wrestling fans. And we were off to a great start for the first couple of months. We were getting these things, we were getting stories, the pay-per-views were always fantastic. But then you could tell that the overbooking of one person being in charge with 4 different wrestling shows under the same umbrella was starting to rear its ugly head between ROH and AEW. If you combine both rosters, those rosters are so bloated, and not everyone could get screen time. And so what has seems to happen is all the focus goes to AEW, and then, like you said, Andrew, ROH gets the scraps, and it's not fair to the individuals who are mostly ROH and rep and bleed ROH. And I'm not going to get into specifics, but there's a certain wrestler on the ROH roster that we got a chance to talk to at the New Jersey WrestleSoul convention. They want more for the women's division. Like, they love working there, but they just want more. And I'm upset as someone who always says that ROH has some of the most consistent good wrestling. But right now, the couple weeks leading into Supercard of Honor and everything after us, I'm upset because ROH is making me a damn liar, Andrew. It's like I feel like I'm lying to people. And I haven't gotten to the point where I'm ashamed to say I watch ROH because I still love the talent that's involved. But that's only going to carry me so far. ROH needs to fix its storytelling. It needs to fix its consistency. It also, the biggest issue that it needs to fix immediately is give me champions that are going to be on my screen while either in the ring or pre-tape promos or backstage segments with Lexi. You literally have Athena and Billy carrying this, not just the division, this whole entire company of ROH, and they are doing the work for both the men's and the women's division. Ooh, I'm so mad. But that is where I'm going to leave that because we could go on forever, but we still got a rest of an episode to go. ROH, just please do better. I want people to watch you, but you're making it very, very hard for me right now to recommend new folks to ROH because you're giving me very little, and bare minimum is no longer going to do it because if you continue to get it this week, right now, Andrew, I am hoping that things get better, but I'm going to wait and see what happens because if we are still this way by the time we get to Death Before Dishonor, we may have to reevaluate something because I'm like, I can't in good conscience. I want to support the talent, but I can't do this anymore. ROH, don't make me look bad. Do better, please. I want to defend you, but you're making it really hard. I don't know. My passion's getting to me. I'm just frustrated, Andrew. I don't know what else to say.
I mean, I don't think there's much more else to say. I mean, we've talked about most of these bullet points for the last few weeks. All 4 of us. It's a consistent thing I see through other reporting, through other fans, and it's so unfortunate too because you listen to the fans that are there live, like watching it there for the actual ROH, match tapings. For the most part, they're into it. They're passionate about it. Outside of the talent that they have in the ring, you've got probably, I think, the best commentary team in all of wrestling. And I think having them actually be able to be there live, like commenting on the show and actually being a part of the show instead of, this pre recorded stuff and all that would just elevate it that much. You have probably the best backstage commentator and interviewer that's out there right now. I mean, the fact that she in and of herself is just so entertaining, that Lexi melds so well with every different character that she interviews, and she doesn't overshadow it by trying to be over the top. She blends in with it and adds to it. The fact that you have that talent as well as the in-ring talent and the history, like you said, of what these things mean, it it feels like those things are all being squandered. And I think that's the most frustrating thing about all of this.
Yeah, it's frustrating, and that's the best way to put it. But we do have to move on with the rest of this episode. But ROH, just please don't make me a liar anymore, because I want to defend you, and I have defended you before, but you're making it really hard for me right now. But we move on back to our regular scheduled programming, because up next we had a tag team match where once again storytelling rears its ugly head into this, because I want this to be good, but I feel that we don't know what we want to do. But we have the infantry taking on Nick Camarado and Jacoby Watts. I had my beef last week with Jacoby and Nick in their match last week, and I have beef again in this match, because what are we doing of how we're booking them? I don't claim to be the best writer on the planet, but I'm like, I can write better crap than this. I don't understand the motivation. I thought we were going to get like religious, self absorbed Jacoby Watts, Nick Camarado's blindly following because he had a fall from grace and he hit rock bottom, and Jacoby Watts was going to manipulate him into this. But now it seems that the story that we're telling is Jacoby's just an asshole and he's just bullying Nick Camarado. And it's like a really weird abusive relationship, and I kind of can't get behind it. It's making me feel icky, and I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't understand it, especially because we've seen Jacoby Watts wrestle. So watching this match actually made me think back to last week and how last week made even less sense, because commentary reminded us that last week was a proving ground match and they almost made it to get a tag team title shot. Why would Jacoby Watts not work for that? Like, why? What is the benefit of hindering your ability to get a title shot when theoretically, in the stories that we've ever been told about professional wrestling, like it's status, it's more money, it's more power. So, like, why would he not want to try and go for that? Like, what does he get out of it? And that's, I think, the biggest problem with this is like, what is this doing? And it right now it's not doing anything. It's making Nick Camarado look dumb. It's not making him like, you had someone who could legitimately be terrifying and intimidating, and you're just making him look dumb. And then you've got Jacoby Watts, who might as well just be a manager at this point. Like, he's not doing anything and it's not entertaining. He's not doing anything enough to make him not being involved in the matches entertaining. It'd be one thing if he was like not getting in, and then when his opponents were hurt, he tags himself in and tries to get the victory that way. Like, how, like, what's the benefit of him losing? And honestly, this match, I just didn't care about. Like, I felt like it was a waste of the infantry, who I guess at least they got a win out of this, but it tried to further a story that I don't care about anymore, and none of it served very much of a purpose. Like, I just didn't care, and that's unfortunate because the infantry is such a phenomenal tag team. I feel like it's just sweeping people up in something that doesn't make very much sense.
It doesn't, and I'm going to reserve my anger, because if next week is the Palm Springs episode, we'll get to there when we get to there. I'll tell you a little bit off air without spoiling anything, but I was heated when we got there. But I know Nick Camarado is not the best wrestler, but there's just something weirdly endearing about him since he's been a part of this whole umbrella that is the AEW cinematic universe. And I actually like him being paired up with Jacoby Watts. I think it's an interesting character. There's interesting facets of story you can tell. Now, again, I am not the best writer, but if you're going to go for this the self-absorbed religious figure, what I would have done is, if you're gonna just have them lose to lose, makes no sense. I thought it would have been a hilarious idea if their promos were in the style of, like, I don't know if anybody else is, I'm showing my age a little bit, but like those like late night tele-evangelical, like donate now type of promos. It's just like, may the Lord bless you is like hallelujah and the things like that, like
Hmm.
getting over the top with it. Now, obviously, I don't know if ROH wants to go there because it can lean to sacrilegious a little bit, but you can have fun with these ideas and play on the religious tropes that we have seen. Or even have Jacoby Watch and Nick Camarado like pre-tape the going behind backstage, handing out pamphlets like a lot of religious organizations do be like, have you heard about our Lord and Savior, Jacoby Watts? Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But no, you're making Nick Camarado, you make Jacoby Watts look like an asshole for no reason without any motivation. You're making Nick Camarado looking like a goober half the time in this whole thing. Again, I had hope and I was
Mhm.
wrong and you crushed my hope. How dare you, ROH? I'm mad at you.
Yeah, they presented us with the idea of something that could be really fun, and they made it not.
Speaking of things that were not fun, and apparently we're getting a rerun, which is I want to preface by saying this: I don't blame Lee Johnson, and I don't blame Kyle Fletcher. I blame whoever decided to book this, but I am gonna have critiques for Lee Johnson because again, I want to get behind you, bro, but we got to. You need to take some. I'm gonna channel our other host, Will. He needs to take some acting classes and some elocution
Yes.
classes. Sir, you cannot keep going at this rate in the way that you cut these promos. But essentially, Lee Johnson pretty much invokes the unwritten rule at ROH, where if you win 5 in a row, you are going to be able to call your shot. And so he calls a shot, and he wants a rematch with Kyle Fletcher. Kyle Fletcher overhears, you know, Lee Johnson talking smack about him as he has a suitcase as he's about to leave the building. I was like, if you're making me believe that he's leaving the building, Kyle Fletcher should have had a shirt on or something. Like,
Yeah.
or like, funny enough, have him have the travel size like airplane pillow. That would have been fun. But Kyle Fletcher says, it's like, really? You want to do this again? All right. Well, I've been. Kyle Fletcher had the line of the night for me. I was like, damn, he's kind of speaking facts. He's like, I've been kind of bored of the competition in ROH recently. I was like, me too, Kyle Fletcher, because nobody has been built up to take you on. And we just randomly threw Dalton Castle at you. And so Kyle Fletcher tells Lee Johnson, name, time, and place, I got you. Lee Johnson thinks that he could take him going for a little bit longer. So Lee Johnson challenges Kyle Fletcher for the ROH World Television Championship in a 2 out of 3 falls match, which I was like, okay, I'm kind of here for this. But also, the problem is Kyle Fletcher accepts, and I was just like, we just had an awesome match at Supercard of Honor. Despite my problems with Lee Johnson's charisma and his promo skills, the 4 of us arguably agreed that that match, along with the Stardom 6-woman tag, was the 2 best matches of the whole entire night because everything else was mediocre at best, on the main card at least. But my issue here is that I guess it's been long enough we can run it back again, but you haven't had these 2 interact since Supercard of Honor. And I'm just like, this unwritten rule needs to make sense. Like, if we had gotten something like on the episode after Super Carnivore, where Lee Johnson says, he's like, you may have gotten the best of me, but I'm going to win my 5 matches and then I'm going to come after you. And see the progression of Kyle Fletcher be like, well, damn, he actually got there. Well, all right, I'm just going to continue to beat you up. But no, we're just having a match just to have a championship match. I was like, that's not how long-term storytelling works.
Nope.
And it makes me mad because the in-ring, I think, is going to be good during this match. It's just the story and the build-up to get here was trash.
I mean, my excitement for this match was, wow, I'm getting 2 to 3 times the amount of something I don't want. Nothing against Lee Johnson, but again, I don't need to see this rerun because there's no depth to it. There's nothing that has me invested in this because I have no reason to believe that Kyle Fletcher is going to lose this title. For one thing, he just beat Dalton Castle, who was probably the biggest challenge he's had to his World Television Championship, which then that makes me more frustrated because I'm like, then is there logic that this is the time now that Lee Johnson's going to win this title? And that will make me even more mad because I think that will be horrible booking if Lee Johnson defeats Kyle Fletcher to win that TV title. Because in all of the non-women's divisions, he's the only one that's having somewhat of interesting run. You know, I mean, we get the Undisputed Kingdom every once in a while when they remember that they're, you know, in another company besides AEW and not busy dealing with Roderick Strong and waiting for Wardlow to turn on the whole group. But this just it's asking for something and asking for something and asking for something, and then the person that you're asking for goes, I know you've been asking for this, but here's something else that you don't want. And yeah, Lee Johnson is not doing it for me in the promos. Like it's just all around it's not interesting.
Yeah, there's not much else to say. It frustrates me because again, Dalton Castle was probably Kyle Fletcher's biggest challenge, and you've built nobody else up. All right, before I have an aneurysm with that one, we're gonna move on because we have an ROH Women's World Television Championship Proving Ground match. Billy Starks is taking on local talent Zamaya. Love the nod to Bull Nakano. I was like,
Yeah.
you already get automatic credit for that one. And I was like, yes. But again, we've only had one Proving Ground match in the whole entire history of this new version of ROH actually go the full 10 minutes, which resulted in the challenger being able to get a title shot from it.
Yeah.
That's all I had to say. It's just, I don't know what else to say. I love Billy Starks, but damn, man, like, just no more Proving Ground matches. Let's just continue to build up the inevitable rematch between her and Queen. Like, let's just get to it because we are starting to lose steam here and it's not fair to the women involved.
I mean, this match was extra frustrating because we got 3 women. This was the third of 3 women's matches that we got on this card. And it was the third of 3 squatches that we got on this card. Seeing Zamai, I mean, that was the first thing I thought too, was a Bull Nakano, and commentary even brought it up. I had really hoped for more from this match. I thought we were going to see something fun from this, especially because we had the only other 2 women's matches we got were squash matches. So I was like, okay, cool. Maybe we're going to see something from this, because Billy's been good in the past of fighting against adversity, even when it's a lesser known talent, of getting beat down, coming back, and still winning. This match, we've talked about it when we talk on other reviews, this review too. This match was something I hate seeing, and it seems to be starting to get overused. The trope of we're going to have a match that's not about the match, it's about what happens after the match, and that's exactly what this match was. And you know, I feel like we're going to probably actually get Red Velvet versus Billy for that world television title, which I'm down for. Like, the 4 of them, Queen, Red Velvet, Billy, and Athena, phenomenal. Love it. But the problem is, we're getting these squash matches. We're getting these people showing up. I mean, we've now seen Marina Shafir, so that's kind of cool. Maybe we'll see her actually in the picture. But for the last year, we saw the Ring of Honor women's division. We had a tournament for the television title. We saw all the people that Athena was facing. We had a roster of really strong women who were showing up every week, if not every other week, and were really good and building up to something. And now it feels like instead of, you know, the women's divisions raising up everything else, they're kind of starting to get dragged down by everything.
Right. And so, to give credence to what happened after the match, Red Velvet comes out and attacks Billy Starks. Billy gets out of the ring and she's backing up the ramp, not turning around. And she doesn't notice until she bumps into her that standing behind her is Queen Aminata, who throws Billy back into the ring, which allows Red Velvet to get a couple licks in. And then Queen and Red are standing tall by the end of this. You know, as much as my brain, because I am a big stickler with consistency in wrestling, would prefer to have a rematch with Queen and Billy, I do like Billy versus Red, which then would allow Queen to go up against Athena,
Yeah.
because Athena will have to kind of need to work a little bit because Queen's no slouch, which would be a really great story. It's just right now, ROH does not have my full trust in being able to handle this story in the way that it is. So far I've enjoyed it, but I'm afraid that when it comes to the climax of this, or when we get to the crescendo of it all, that they're gonna fumble it up and they're gonna mess it up. And you know, because what we've been seeing for the last couple of weeks, post Supercard of Honor, ROH has slowly been chiseling away at my trust. And that's where I think most of my frustration is. Like, I trusted you, ROH,
Hmm.
and you're kind of eating away at it. I still want to watch it. I still have trust in you to a certain extent, but you got to start building it back up because otherwise I'm going to be deflated of all trust and I'm not going to want to watch you anymore because I'm made to look like a fool every time I watch you. Just like how I felt during our main event tonight, we had a trios triple threat match that came out of nowhere. We had the team of the Mama's Boys, which is, Griff Garrison and Cole Carter, teaming up with Johnny TV, taking on the Iron Savages and Jack Jamison, who cut a promo in the middle of, their entrance, which was not good. I'm sorry. That was not great. I'm like, Jack Jamison is usually great on the mic, but I don't like this heel version of the Iron Savages. They need to go a different direction with the healiness. And then it made me mad because, again, you have the Dark Order. Just stick them in ROH forever. Like, oh my gosh. Like, I love the Dark Order and just let them be faces. Like, they are so well loved by the wrestling community. They are so over in ROH. Just let them be in ROH on a consistent basis. And I don't know, maybe have them be your trios champions because they appear there more than the Bang Bang Gang do, anyways. But I wanted to like this match because, there were a lot of people in here, despite how my initial feelings about Cole Carter has kind of evolved a little bit because I like the Mama's Boys. I hated the story they were in, but I like them as a team. They worked their butts off with Maria to get to this point. And of course, I can never be mad at my boys of the Iron Savages. Like, shout out to Bulk, be like, hey, another Bi-Conic. That's the good thing we learned this week. And I love the Dark Order. This match was 8 minutes. I'm happy the Dark Order won, but there was no stakes. Why did we have this match? Just because we wanted to be entertained? No! I am tired of just throwing all these people in the ring just to be entertained. Though I'm going to contradict myself for next week's episode for sure, and I apologize in advance, future me, but this should have been swapped out with the television championship match. Like, I think this trio's triple threat could have been a really great middle of the show thing to put in there to keep us invested and close us out on the championship. Again, the booking decisions were bad here. I like the Dark Order one. Just this was not the right place to put this.
Yeah.
And Jack Jamison still cannot wrestle.
No, I mean,
I
first
don't
off,
want to go. Yeah, I don't want to go to Titty City anymore, Andrew. I
no,
don't.
the comedic heel Iron Savages just doesn't work. At least when they were faces in doing this, I still believed that they could make like a run. Like I saw them potentially getting the tag team titles or the trios titles, or any of that kind of stuff. Like it felt like it fit for them. It was very New Day ish. As comedic heels, I feel like they're jokes now. They don't seem intimidating. They're still using the same jokes as heels, and it's not funny anymore. It doesn't click. They need to have made that full turn into heel, especially because we're not seeing the Gates of Agony and Brian Cage on Ring of Honor that much anymore. So we could have replaced them with the Iron Savages, been the big powerhouse, frightening tag team, because we also haven't seen the Righteous in a while, so like it gives you another scary heel team to be able to use. We've got enough comedy stuff. They took them away from being faces. So they need to make that change and commit to that because this comedy heel thing is not working. It was a fine trios match. Ring of Honor seems to have this idea that like you have to end every show with a multi-person match, whether it's like an 8-man tag match or like a 12 women threat match or whatever the hell it is, that they're just like, oh, like these are the people that were left over that didn't wrestle on the card. Okay, put them in a match together. The victory seemed pretty obvious because, Mama's TV obviously was not going to win because they're not an established team. They can take a loss or at least not get the victory. And the Iron Savages are the comedic heels. They're not going to win. So it made sense that the Dark Order would win. They should have won. They did. There were some impressive moments. Seeing John Silver hit that suplex was crazy. But overall, it just felt kind of too congested. And I don't know what any of this means going forward. We don't really have a trios champion, a 6-man tag championship in Ring of Honor anymore. Not that we really had it that much before. And we hardly have a tag team championship in Ring of Honor. So what what did this do for us? And then that raises my question from earlier. Why was this the main event? Why was your championship match not your main event?
Whoever is in charge of booking or even the production side for ROH, I'm like, I do not advocate for people to be fired, but I think we need to have some sort of training for these folks
Yeah.
because right now it is a mess. And maybe to someone who is not reviewing this on a weekly basis can probably not pick up on these nuances. But the California boys here, we know. We know. We can see this because this is what we're doing. I mean, we want to do this for a living, but right now it's for purely entertainment value, but also because we care. We're passionate wrestling fans, damn it. And we want to see good things for all the folks in there. And we're always going to be supporting talent. We just want these companies to support the same talent. Like, just please, Ring of Honor, I want you to do better next week. And Andrew mentioned something in his, summary about, why are these multi-person matches happening as our main events. We're going to talk a bit off camera because Andrew might actually get upset for next week, but, that's neither here nor there. But Andrew, we reached the end of this week's ROH. Surprised we almost did a whole hour, but that's because of us complaining and ranting half the time, which is important because we care about the product and we need the company to do the same. But let's get into our empanada ratings. I'm going to go first because I'm going to keep it short and I'm going to keep it simple. I'm giving this week's episode a 5 out of 10. I was uninspired. I was not happy with a lot of this. We are retreading some ground that didn't need to happen. And also, it just feels that ROH right now is just directionless. And for me, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I would rather take a bad show over a directionless show. Because if it's a bad show, but I could see where we're going, I was like, okay, this was not necessarily the greatest, but I can see where we're going now. The crystal ball is very foggy right now, Andrew, and I cannot see into ROH's future. I can't see what's gonna happen in like 2 weeks from now, and I don't know if you feel the same way. I might be overreacting, but I'm really worried about the road to Death Before Dishonor because we are like 6-7 weeks out from Death Before Dishonor, and I'm scared of how we're gonna be building to this pay-per-view. So this week it's a 5 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, no, I agree with that run to death towards Dishonor because I feel like that whole card is building up to basically half of what we got for Supercard of Honor, where we were going into the episode before Supercard of Honor going, what about all of these things? And then they crammed them in to try and make it work, and most of them didn't. This week, I give it a 4. 3 of the 6 matches were Squatch matches, and those were the 3 women's matches. It was frustrating enough for myself on behalf of Jesse, who is someone who gets particularly frustrated about that stuff. That was just super unacceptable, especially when the women's divisions have been the thing carrying you for the last, year and a half. The promos did nothing for me outside of the aftermath of the Billy Starks match. I don't feel like anything was building storylines. At this point, I don't know what to get excited for from Ring of Honor. It's just it's just ruining it each week, hoping we get some sort of like respect and planning for the product and performers, and it's giving me less hope of that every time I watch it going forward, that it's going to get better. It just starts to make me feel like it's not. 2023 was a phenomenal year for Ring of Honor. There were problems still, but we were watching the people that were there working super hard to make Ring of Honor count and matter. We had matches of all the different divisions. We had some phenomenal champions, some phenomenal matches, some phenomenal storylines and rivalries. 2024 is off to an abysmal year for Ring of Honor.
It just feels very uninspired, and I
Yeah.
think that's what's a lot of my source of my frustration with this. I am someone, and to be very transparent here, sometimes I feel that I don't lack the same knowledge base as a lot of my BC WrestlePod hosts here because I am still fairly young to professional wrestling. I didn't grow up during the Attitude Era. I didn't grow up during the early 2000s, 90s of wrestling. I only really discovered wrestling when I went to college. That was back in 2011. And then I stopped because I thought it was uncool. And it was only because of when the world shut down that I found a rekindled passion for it, especially thanks to my grandmother, who became my wrestling partner during the pandemic era. And I want to carry that spirit with me always. And that's why I'm so passionate for wrestling. But ROH, please, I need you to give me something here because I still tout last year's Death Before Dishonor as like the best pay per view for me for 2023 because it has my favorite match of all time within the last couple of years with Willow versus Athena. Like that match was almost 40 minutes of them going at it. And it showcased not only that women's matches can main event, because that was the main event of that pay per view, but it also showed that ROH can bring something different that a lot of major other companies aren't. And that same passion and desire has seemed to left ROH as a shell of its former self, and everything that we're getting right now is so uninspired. It's just frustrating. And I'm still going to review ROH, but I'm hoping that they kick it into high gear for Death Before Dishonor because I want people to be exposed to this because there's some great talent there. You're just not utilizing them to the fullest potential, ROH. But that is going to be it. The Cali crew, yeah, we did not really think too fondly of this episode. Again, if next week is the Palm Springs episode, my opinion is not going to matter in weight because I'm going to be biased as all hell, but it's still going to be a fun time. I'm super excited to have Mama Laguillo be guesting next week and have the other hosts embarrass me, but it's okay. She's excited. I'm excited to have her and to get a new perspective. But that is going to be it for us. Andrew, we forgot to do it at the beginning, but even though this episode was bad, let's shake on it. It's been a pleasure to review this with you. And stay tuned for next week's ROH as we hopefully have better things to talk about and have more positive things to talk about ROH. But for myself and Andrew and JVL and Jesse and the rest of the BC WrestlePod crew, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay Bi-Conic, but more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We'll catch you next week for ROH, but until then, sayonara and adios.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another Vibe Tribe production. What's gonna happen next time? Well, you're gonna have to tune in to find out. But until then, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, make sure that you keep the good times rolling. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.